Okay, we will take a roll call attendance. Heidi Brooks here. Brock did let me know that he cannot make it tonight. David Cunha,
Here.
Terry
Here.
Ham, Sean McDonald,
Here.
Steve Mello,
Here.
Brian O'Hare,
Here.
Steve Taylor,
Here.
Mary Waite. Okay. Non-voting members, Sean McInnes,
Here.
Anthony said he could not make it, Cody and Melanie.
Sure.
Great. All right. So last time we were together, we were able to push our way through 2.5 and the document that I had sent out had, I'm calling them the holes, which is what we would do in town meeting. So I'm just realizing I didn't pull up Anthony's. And Anthony has not sent us section 3. So after tonight, depending on how far we get, I'm just going to send out I'll just remind him that we haven't gotten it. And I know it's a crazy time of year, but it really would be important that we get it well in advance of our next meeting.
I spoke to him Monday about it when I was putting the agenda together, and he's got it mostly done, but he didn't want to send it out until it's complete. And then he had the prior commitment, so.
Okay. We will accept that he's a busy person.
When is our next meeting?
We had not set that, but I'm thinking we have on the calendar I had originally sent out, our options in January were the 6th, every Wednesday looked fine, 6, 13, 20, and 27. They all looked fine. In February, we have the 17th was that's a school vacation week. And there were some people that may be doing something. I don't know. I don't know what the status will be, but we hadn't set one in specifically yet for January. So we certainly can. We will, in essence, be off the 23rd and 30th due to the holidays and everything. Although I don't think it'll feel like we've had any time, off. So I don't know if people want to start the 6th or the 13th. I can't see everybody.
I think the 6th and the 20th will be good.
Okay.
I'll be ready to go 6th and 20th as well.
Heidi, I just joined. I apologize.
Oh, hello, Mary.
Hi.
We were just looking at the calendar for January.
Okay.
And so we would know when we were meeting again.
Right.
And on the table is the 6th and the 20th.
That's fine with me. Wednesdays are fine.
Okay. Terry,
Yep, that's good with me.
Steve Taylor,
Yes, that's okay.
great. Dave Cunha,
Yeah, that looks good for me.
okay. Brian,
Looks okay at this point. Yep.
okay. Of course, if any of us win the lottery, you can still attend remotely from
That's
your
right.
yacht somewhere warm. All right, so as I said in my email, we had gotten through 2.5 and we were about to start the 2.6. And I think it's a lot to think that we can get through as much as I said tonight, but it's worth a shot.
Can we put the
So-
document up on the screen? Share the screen?
Yeah, can we do that?
Oh, yep. That's. Do you want me to share it?
Yeah,
All right, you gotta
please.
I
Thanks,
think
John.
the rest of us have the power.
give me 1 second here.
Heidi,
Yes.
Brian O'Hare, did you say you sent out an email fairly recently?
Around 4:30 or so? No, 5:30.
5:30. Uh, I never got it.
Did you get Sean's email earlier today?
I
Yes,
did.
You did? Okay, because I just used reply all on that.
I never got it.
I will resend it to you.
Hold on, no, I take it back. Now it's here. Sorry, I do have
Hope
it.
that happens.
Refresh the email screen maybe, but anyway, it's there. I got it at 5:41.
So did I.
Okay,
And I gave everybody my cell only because sometimes I'm not checking my emails until the evening. And unfortunately, last week, somebody emailed me like, is today our
So-
Wednesday? And I saw that long after 6 o'clock. So I apologize, but you can just text me on my cell. Okay, so now it is up there and we're looking at section 2.6 vacancies. I do think one of the points that were raised at our last meeting that is on that hold list is about write-in candidates. And I think, we really need to have I think a bigger discussion with Anthony about which, which is, filling of vacancies. And I keep thinking about the story that Mary shared last time that her husband didn't want the seat. And it was sort of thrust upon him. And we have this language about, accepting it, getting, excuse me, getting, signatures. And and then it comes down to, one of the, it's like a loophole. If you know somebody and want in,
I'll be right back. Excuse me.
it's a little tricky, The choice to fill any vacancy shall be by written ballot or a majority of votes cast shall be required for a choice. And that's, I know as a town meeting member, I've gotten a list, a paper copy in the mail saying, please pick, 2 candidates from this list of 8. And then I, as a town meeting member, have to return that form. As a town meeting member from my precinct, have to return that form. But to the point that Brock had made, it doesn't necessarily mean that, I could have been written in by 2 people. But Brock was talking to us really about some of the formats and at the state level and that may be, more hoops than we need at the town level.
What were those, Heidi? Do you know? Like, what were some of them?
He talked about because of his work for as the Republican Party chair for the town, there's some things that he does at the state level, and they have to get, I think it was 50 signatures. I'm looking. I don't believe I wrote it down. He had to get 50 signatures even to be like, to be placed on a ballot. And so he did not feel that they, Brock, write-in candidates should have to get 20 write-ins to be considered, was his suggestion. Because something that he does with the Republican Party, you have to get, I think it was 50 write-ins to be considered. So if somebody could win with less than 50 votes, but if the writing candidate didn't have 50 votes,
Yeah.
a writing candidate couldn't win. It was something, and I honestly don't know if that's state level or in his Republican Party work that he does. But it certainly gave us pause to think about, how are we doing these write-ins?
Yeah, I think one of his
And it
points
doesn't
too,
look like
Heidi.
any of our precincts, except for, I think it was maybe 9 and 7 were completely full with the information that Sean had given us.
How many signatures does somebody have to get if they just run for election in the normal cycle?
It's
In the
there.
town,
You need, you need
For town
20,
meeting, for town meeting member,
you need 25.
It was a
25, right,
from your precinct.
right.
And if you're running for an office, a townwide office, then they can be from any precinct, but the number is
50.
50.
It does seem to make sense to have at least a minimum of those numbers to be, or a minimum of 25 numbers to be a votes to be a town meeting rep. Because if that's what it takes to just get on the ballot, then yeah.
To just get on the ballot.
But how to write in, I mean, all ballots have the option for a write-in candidate, correct?
Mhm.
Even Senate. Any office has that. So we would have to know, how does that work and what would stop? Why would we change that at the town level, I guess? And I'm thinking in particular of North Dartmouth, where we have openings. We just don't have the membership that they have in South Dartmouth. And it's been helpful a couple of times for people who are willing to be able, who didn't know about collecting signatures. You can always say no, but if somebody wants to participate and they're willing to be written in as a member, that's a nice alternative.
But it does, when you listen to those numbers, you do think, well, maybe it needs to be more than themselves and their spouse. Maybe they need to tell their neighbors that they're interested and get a larger number. But again, this is not, town meeting doesn't seem to be a group that people are clamoring to be a part of.
Mhm.
Right.
Sadly, or any committee. We have more, single name, no competition for slots.
So maybe that's a hold item then, and we need to
Yeah.
investigate it some more.
I think so.
And also, wouldn't that, the change on that be dependent upon or affected by any decision to reduce the size of town meeting?
Yeah.
Certainly could be, but I do
Yeah, so-
think that the census that is happening that we talked about last time doesn't look like it's going to be the redistricting of the precincts. Doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon.
But it sounds like maybe we ought to figure out the size of future town meeting before we worry about how many signatures you get per precinct.
Well, we know what the size of town meeting is, so that's already determined.
Oh, I thought there was
That's-
some discussion about
Yeah,
changing.
it's discussion, but
Yes.
I mean, as it
Yeah.
stands right now, we know
Right.
what it is. When I read Anthony's comments, it seemed to me that what he was concerned about was the question that Heidi just raised of a smaller than the general electorate making decisions about town meeting members. It wasn't so much, and I can be wrong about this, but it wasn't so much in my mind a problem for people to be written in. It was a problem for them, like you get that little, and the same things happened to me. These 3 people signed up, there's only 1 opening, please tell me who you want, for a subsection of the voters. That is, I thought what he was saying was a problem.
Hmm.
But we'll have to ask him that question.
I'm assuming 26A and 26B is fine, right?
They, to
That's
me,
fine.
looked like they were just clerical changes.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're just capitalizations and so on.
Yeah.
And then when we go down to 2.7, which is compensation,
Oh, that's fine.
I thought the original made it clear no one was getting paid, but if Anthony feels he needs to spell it out that
Well,
clearly.
that would be probably if, let's say, a teacher is a
Mhm.
town meeting member.
Mhm.
So it doesn't preclude the teacher from not getting paid as a teacher.
Right.
So only as a town meeting member.
Yeah, I think it's fine. You know, it certainly is, I think adds clarity to that point, you know, if we need to cover that point. Just want to provides like, you know, any kind of plowing services or something like that as well.
The only thing, the one thing, if we can go back up to B for a minute. Third sentence where it says town meeting member who removes from one precinct to another or is so removed by a revision of the precincts is, I guess this is my English, this is my Mr. Marvin English class working on me here. Is it member who removes from one precinct or is it member who moves from one precinct?
I think it's moves, so I'll highlight that.
I think it's move. I
Yeah.
think he saw the, because I agree with the other one. Or so removed by revision.
I agree,
because
Sean.
Revision removes. And, you know, when I move from one place to another, I don't remove well, I guess I remove myself from one house and put my butt in another one, I guess, but that's not normal.
But we're trying to simplify the language, so I think moves is a,
I do.
Yeah.
you know, good
Yeah.
change.
Okay.
I had a question on going back to C for a second. Are
Mhm.
we thinking of the possibility of changing places where things should, will notifications have to be by mail, as in US mail, or are we going to allow for email or electronic notification in the future?
That was something we
Uh,
discussed previously, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, well, I think it was agreed to go back to that. And we'd have to check at the state level too, what is allowed. You know, but I agree. I mean, mailing seems to be antiquated.
Well, it's also less efficient. You for sure get your emails every day. Your postal mail, if you're on vacation or something, you don't get it.
I say we go back
And
to
you can
carrying
certainly
pigeon.
have, read receipt so that, if they put that in, somebody has to acknowledge that they opened it.
Right. You need a read receipt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we have now, like with our online permitting, we send emails out and we get notification when they open the email that just says they've opened it. And if there's links in it, we get notifications that they've clicked on the links in them. So the technology is pretty good now. You can tell if
Oh, good.
someone's got the email and read it.
Tracing, tracking.
Yeah, well, whatever we do, we should probably do it consistently throughout the document, but I would certainly be in favor if the state allows it to put email in our document.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no reason why we can't do both,
No,
to hedge our bets.
Right.
I mean, we can do both and then we can look like we're forward thinking. And then 10 years from now, when the post office is now the email office, it looks like hey, those guys did a nice job thinking way ahead of their time. Wishful thinking, but
yeah, and we talk about that with the town, just even the town meeting packet that goes out. I mean, that could be emailed or just, provide a link and people can access it.
And that would be very interesting to see who opens it when.
Well, we're training people through Zoom to access it. Yeah, yeah, I know. Open it right at the meeting.
Yep.
Well, it's also getting to be a significant budget item. In other words, if you could do US mail for somebody who requests it, but the more you can do email, the more money the town saves.
Yes. No, even at the reduced rate we get, it's still expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, what's a regular postage stamp now? 55?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, my company, it's 50 for us because we got a machine and the volume that we have. But still, I mean, it's, you're saving a nickel. Ooh.
Move on to 2-8.
Mhm.
Yes, please. Well, 2-8, which is interesting. So this was amended by town meeting in 2014. And that's not all that long ago when he had a lot of red.
Mostly capitalization though.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
On 2.8, his changes look fine.
Fine.
Did anyone else see?
The only thing is now I remember, maybe it's in the Robert Rules of Order, but when you question the moderator, like the count, which the last things, the rulings made by the town moderator may be appealed to the town meeting by a motion to do so and shall be put to the meeting by the moderator in the form. Shall the ruling of the moderator be reversed? Majority vote shall be required to reverse rulings of the moderator. Now, if I remember correctly, at one point in time, they used to, 7 people had to stand up to challenge a ruling or challenge a vote. This doesn't give that number. This is one person can do it.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is conflicting with the Robert's Rules of Order, which town meeting time, which is what the town moderator goes by. If it should be consistent with, if this is the case, then everybody can stand up and challenge any ruling anytime she opens her mouth.
So Sean, just go back for a minute. One of the documents was called town meeting
Town meeting time.
time
Looking at it right now.
and Robert's rules.
Robert's Rules.
So I have a question. What is a teller?
Teller is a person who basically just walks up and down the aisle and counts.
Yep.
Oh, all right.
You
Everybody
don't
knows
want
that.
to, you don't want to call them counters because, but a
Okay.
teller is the same thing.
All right. Everyone knows that, I presume, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So I have a question. Can we, Sean, do you have a copy of town meeting time, a handbook? I mean, I'm looking online. So what I just found is that we have to order it from the Massachusetts Moderators Association. Do you have something in front of you?
I don't have it myself. I know when I ran for moderator, I was in the process of getting it and I said, well, if I lose, then I'm going to spend that money unwisely. So I cheaped out.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, I believe there's a copy in town somewhere, at least
All
one
right,
or two.
Yeah, we have one.
Let me put a hold on that. So
Yeah,
we should probably put a hold on that to clarify.
Yep, I just did.
Okay, thanks.
And
So did Sean.
I
guess.
think there is information in here, though, which it does, wasn't the previous paragraph have something about the town, the moderator stepping down if there's a conflict of interest?
Yeah, that's the next one above. And that's already
Okay.
happened.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's.
Okay, I just
that's-
wanted to make sure I hadn't
Yeah, she can
thought it was
appoint,
there, but I didn't see it. Okay.
yeah, no, she can appoint anybody. And generally it'll be Anthony or somebody on the stage
Mm-hmm.
so that nobody has to go up. But it can't be, it has to be, well, let's put it this way. It's gonna be from that front table. It'll either be the town clerk, it'll be Greg Barnes, or it'll be Anthony or Sean, or the town administrator. because it can't be a town meeting member.
So that's interesting. We should make a note on here because it doesn't say the town clerk. It just says the town clerk shall preside until and unless the town meeting appoints a moderator. So I think at our last town meeting,
Right.
the moderator appointed town council.
Yes.
So maybe we should clarify this there.
Also, it does not say that the person cannot be a town meeting member.
I thought it said that.
It does in the last paragraph.
Oh, further down.
Last
Okay.
paragraph.
Further down.
Next to last, yep. Shall appoint at least 2 persons not representative town meeting members.
Oh,
Those.
yes, as the
As the people who are taking the
count,
tellers.
the tellers, but I was thinking
it
of
says.
the moderator to sub for her or him if there is a conflict.
That
That
seems
part,
tough.
it just says, except in this case of a conflict of interest, if the town manager is absent, unable to present town meeting, a portion thereof, whether due to conflict of interest, otherwise the town clerk shall preside until and unless the town meeting appoints a moderator pro tempore of that town meeting. So it does not say the person cannot be a town meeting member.
Right.
So we should add that if we think that they shouldn't be. And to me, it seems like they shouldn't be if the tellers can't be.
Well, is it down on the next page?
Oh, sorry, hold on.
Sorry, I know
Thank
Sean's
you.
trying to.
Yeah, I was using this as well.
Oh, okay, no, it's the tellers who can't be town meeting members. Okay, never mind.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
All right, I can understand that, all right, yeah, no, town meeting member, as a moderator, that's not a big deal. They should, I mean, let's put it this way, if somebody was a town meeting member and then they voted, I mean, they had the right to vote, but if she asked me to sit in on for her, I would abstain from voting just because I'm running this.
But
Right,
it is,
but I think that raises a point, Sean, because somebody might know that person feels a certain way on an item and then feels that maybe they led the discussion or called on people to speak.
Yeah, that could be stated, whether or not it's true, but it could be pointed out saying, well, they gave this person and this person who were in favor more time than the person who was against it.
Right.
Type of thing.
and don't we say in addition to that the moderator is, if there's a conflict of interest, cannot, be moderator. So the person who would be substituting wouldn't be able to be moderator either if there's a conflict of interest that can be demonstrated.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you're saying about like there's a bias there, which may not necessarily be an overt conflict of interest. I just, it's tough.
I mean, we can ask Anthony, whether or not to add that to the first paragraph, that the person, that the moderator pro tempore be not a town meeting member. So you still have a sense of non-bias.
So Sean,
Discussion.
but with that said, within that the moderator pro temp attend necessarily all the meetings? I mean, I guess they would.
No, because it could be somebody on the stage. It could be the town
Could be for
clerk. It
just
could
one
be-
issue.
Right, it
Okay.
could be- and it's more than likely, it's just for one issue.
Okay,
I mean, it could be multiple issues in a meeting, depending upon,
right.
who the moderator is and what they do, and if whatever business that they may be in comes up at town.
Right.
But, I mean, it could be any one of the four, or it could be, or it could be somebody on the select board who is not a town meeting member, but that doesn't happen too often. Or somebody from the finance committee. Generally, half the members of the finance committee, are town meeting members, and half are not.
No, okay.
Well, I'm thinking back to the last town meeting when the moderator recused herself. And it says here specifically, clerk.
Hmm.
But the issue that was up for discussion was regarding the town clerk.
Right, it was their sister.
Right,
Right, that's why it
So-
was Anthony.
yeah. But so I'm gonna say that I think then we need to say town clerk or other member of the head table. I don't know, but clearly there needs to be a clause. It happened once, it could happen again.
I would say,
shall
I would say
preside.
someone, either the town clerk or a non-town meeting member, non-voting town meeting member, however you want to word that.
Yeah, I'll ask, because the thing is that they need to know
Right,
about town meeting and how to operate town meetings.
Right.
Why couldn't you spell it out that if it's not the moderator, it's either town clerk or town council, for example, or deputy town council, so you have enough. So
well, hopefully they're both there.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, I would just kind of, you can leave it to where it could be one of 4 or 6 people, but,
yeah, no, that's all right.
I mean, because to be honest with you, what if we go back to, regular in-person town meetings and, town council needs to take a break and something happens with the town clerk that she needs to be over at the town hall because somebody is getting married and they're getting married that afternoon, they need a license. I mean, you bring up all sorts of stuff that can happen, but.
Well, I think so. As part of the whole, that's another piece of who to appoint.
Okay.
So now we can move on to. So this 2-9, to appoint becomes interesting because it was, and this was, again, was in 2014, 2015, when it was stated that the first Tuesday of the month in June would be the annual town meeting, and then the second annual town meeting shall be held on the third Tuesday in October. So we used to have it that, which was a discussion point from our last meeting, that it used to be, sort of a random decision sometime when they could get everybody on board. And we opted, and I remember out of great discussion, to set these 2 dates so that people would always know when they were. Of course, this year, when we got to the June town meeting, and again in the annual town meeting, we had this COVID issue. But I do think we're probably better off keeping it on those dates that have been set here, because now that we have a mechanism to go remote, we should know in advance and be able to just pull the trigger for the first Tuesday in the month of June and the, third Tuesday in October.
I
And
agree.
this is where I'm going to get on my soapbox. I think it should be Saturdays. I mean, there was a reason why I wanted to do town meeting on a Saturday, to see the participation. And I'll be honest with you, I think we ended up with more people on a Tuesday night than we did for the Tuesday night town meeting in October than we did in the June, mostly because, and this is what I'm going to say, a lot of people were elected for the first time after town meeting. It was a kind of unique situation where we had town meeting and then we had the town election. So, but I firmly believe that the budgetary town meeting in June should be on a Saturday.
And I actually agree with that, hard as that may be to believe. I think that having one of them on a Saturday and one at night gives people options that might not be there otherwise. And I think that the point that was made about letting people know in advance, Heidi, is a good one. And I think that as long as people know in advance, there might be the first time they're elected that they don't know. But setting those dates, I think, is important. I do think that it's helpful to have a weekend and an evening. I know when I was working full time, it was impossible for me to take a day off and go to a town meeting. I couldn't believe they held town meetings during the weekday. And I know people work on the weekends. That came up in the last town meeting. There were concerns about people having to give notice, but I think that was in part because it was setting the date later than normal. It was kind of uncertain what was going to happen, and I'm not sure what's going to. I think it would be great for participation if we are able to continue meeting remotely, but it's an emergency order right now, and I don't know how long that will last. So I think that, to be sure, I would say set the dates in advance, and I agree, having at least one of the dates, and the budget meeting makes sense because it's usually the longest one on a Saturday would be a good idea. I guess that's a one woman's opinion. How do we find out if that works for people? Is this something that we put on the hold piece, and when we think about doing a survey at some point of town residents or town meeting members, we ask that question?
I'm going to put that exactly like that. Hold, do we conduct a survey? Because I think that there are some things that I wonder about. For example, how many town officials who need to be at town meeting, what would it cost the town if, okay, Mary, if they have to submit time cards for a Saturday at time and a half?
Well, that's not the case. Usually, department heads are required to attend town meeting and they don't get paid overtime.
Okay,
So that's not an issue. Some things to think about though, with the Saturday town meetings are good when it's early in the year. Sometimes when it's nice out, people they think, I don't want to be there. I think what's very helpful with town meetings is when the warrants aren't long. I think that's a deterrent sometimes. I don't know how we control that better, but I know people are more apt to participate when they look at it and think, oh, it's not going to last all day. It can be out of here in an hour or two. I think, people are busy. I think it's been really helpful online and Zoom. People have enjoyed that, but they've been in the comfort of their home. They're not trudging out and sitting around.
Mhm.
So I think that has more to do with it than the day. I think Saturdays definitely work. It's people have more free time. They don't have to, leave work. And
but
if
it
it's
may
shorter,
be something for the survey, because I look at Saturdays and I remember being, many moons ago as a town meeting member, and having Saturdays be, sports for my kids. And unless I was Zooming from the soccer field, I probably was not going to be able to be there. And then looking at June, in the nice weather, certainly a Saturday is a distraction.
I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'm just for young people who have children, Heidi, that are in the schools. Those are really busy days in June. That's all. That's all. I mean, again, as you talk about Saturdays, again, I'm not, again, I'm zeroing in on that population. I'm thinking graduations, everything else that happens in June
Right.
specifically, but
I mean, we can ask the non-scholastic sports groups to, to keep that Saturday open.
yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I apologize. I have to go. I have to drive my boy somewhere, but thank you, everybody.
All right, bye, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
All right.
But I am going to keep it down as a possible survey, especially of current town meeting members, because I think it would be good information to find out their demographic to see what age that is a problem for, because we don't want it to deter people being involved if they have to take a day out of work, which is a no day for some people, or miss out on a family obligation. But I do think the daytime June meeting, which it's always been, starting in the morning, I do think that's a hard time, anything to have people be out of work. I
It's
know
one
people
of the
don't.
major,
evening,
it was
but-
one of the major complaints I've constantly heard up until recently, and even once in a while recently, that town meeting in June is only good for town employees and town officials, and that the regular guy can't be there because they have to work, and that it's unfair.
I
Whether or
haven't,
not, I mean, whether or not how true that is, but there was a proliferation of town employees, and there was also a lot of retirees. There wasn't too many others there.
And I've heard the same thing, Sean. The issue for me is the June town meeting being an all-day meeting and working in the school. That was the last day that I would want to be out of the building. So it would be rare that I would make it there
Well,
for,
these meetings
day.
now, the June meeting is not as long as, I mean, I remember June meetings that would go day into the night and then into the
Yep.
next day. I mean, the next
Yep.
evening. Now it's, for the most part, in the last, since, we've gone to the dual meetings, we're out, I think the latest we've been out is 3:00.
can I ask a question that came up with the finance committee a couple of years ago, and in the spirit of, when you have a group that only meets twice a year, we've talked about the lack of education and even with some of the new members not knowing how the meetings run or what, a question came up on the finance committee a few years back about the idea of having 3 meetings a year rather than 2. And I don't know if that's something that anybody had any interest in. One benefit that I can think of right off the top of my head is that you keep the agenda a little bit shorter for each one. But I realize then there's the downside of changing a practice that's been only 2 times a year.
I believe there were some SMU students that Shannon Jenkins had engaged and
Okay.
maybe Doug Roscoe that were standing outside of one of our town meetings with that question.
Okay.
Asking us if we wanted to go from 2 to 3. And I believe it was stated by being no, but I mean, we'd have to see if my
Okay.
memory could be shot to hell. I will say, I do think the agendas are not that long.
Mhm.
So when I do remember those day-long meetings that Sean's referring to, that we'd have to go back after lunch, back after supper, be there till 11, and then
Yeah.
come back the next day. And we don't have those anymore. And I don't even know that, I don't consider the agendas being that long to say we need 3 to separate them. But I do remember
And
there would
the other
be
part of that
discussion.
too is deciding what shows up at what meeting.
Right,
I mean,
and I do think there was,
because
financial
right
issues.
now, all the financial stuff is in June. That's done to set the budget, set all the funds, everything from that going point. And then in October, now we know, once the year end is over, we take a look at our free cash, and that's when we do our capital stuff. And then, of course, the planning board and any other board, want to do any kind of bylaw changes or looking for grants and grant applications and stuff like that.
Okay.
Very rare have we had a special town meeting other than than the scheduled one. I do remember several years in a row where we did have 3 town meetings in June, and then we had one in September, and then there was one in January. And I'm trying to remember, I believe, to be honest with you, I think it was for zoning, but it was for a reactionary zoning. There was something coming up down the pike and people were kind of getting a little antsy about it, so they decided to push something through, in January or February. And
Okay.
the town meeting didn't go over that well.
I think if you were to separate them, you would be looking at a February date, just so that it's every 4 months, you have these 3 meetings. And I think the issue really comes down to weather then.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we're in person, I can remember like trying to park in snow or telling the people that they had to travel in snow and ice.
Okay.
Bad
I
news.
wanted to bring it up just to see what people
But
thought.
I-
but
I
We
do-
can move on. We can move on.
Yeah, I would be worried about our seniors, our
Driving.
senior members, driving and walking in the weather. And to be honest with you, I'm getting to be at that point too, so. Kind of stinks. but
As long as you
It
said
seems
it,
to
Sean,
me
and
that one
not
of the
us.
things that would really benefit us, and we may have to get some collaboration with other towns to lobby the state, but if we had the choice of having these meetings be by Zoom, that takes care of a lot of issues with people who don't
Yes.
want to travel and all that kind of stuff. And maybe when we do a survey, we could survey some other towns and see if we could see what their interest is and let the state know of that.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if the state didn't allow this moving forward. I mean, I don't know if they'll go back to in person in the short term, but it's been pretty successful, but not a lot of communities are doing it, which is, so I don't know if there'll be a big push at the state level right away.
I think it would be hard for those communities that have open town meeting,
Yeah,
but where we have elected town meeting, maybe we stand a shot at it.
Do we want to put that in the charter or consider putting that in the charter? In other words, thinking,
remote meetings.
yes, procedures for, if allowed by the state.
I would say yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, we
would
have
too.
in here the electronic voting, and I would like to see that stay in case we ever get to a point of being able to do that. So, yeah, would that go in this section, Steve, do you think?
Most likely, it would be maybe another subdivision of section 2, but that's just my thought right now without going through the mechanism.
I agree with
Well, I
Steve. and
think
others.
under
think that'd be good to put in.
214, when we get down to it, it's all about town meeting procedures.
Okay,
And that may be a spot to put it.
I was thinking maybe it would be a special town meeting or considered a special town meeting or, yeah, I don't know if that would be,
I wouldn't want to limit it to the special. I would,
no,
yeah, so
Yeah.
that, I'll make a note here too, we'll come back to that.
Mm. So we'll move now to 10, which is the special town meeting. And as Sean had said, this is really, it's special because it's business items that could not happen at either the annual or the fall meeting. And I do know we've also had special town meetings at the fall meeting where we have we open with the special meeting and then we go into our fall meeting.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's kind of combined.
Yeah, language is fine. In the petition of 200 or more voters, in the manner provided by general bylaw, they have to have a specific point to address.
Sadly, I cannot think of one in recent memory.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
You've
But it
had,
needs to be
you
there
have
just
had
in
one though?
case. Excuse me.
We've had them, yeah, we've had them before. We've had town meeting, we've had special town meeting go 3 or 4 times because you can't get a quorum.
Oh, no, but have you had one because you've had 200 or more voters sign a petition to have one?
No, generally, but that was a call by the select board, I think, and
Yeah,
like I said, it was for some zoning issues or something like that at the time.
We've had them for prior year bills too.
And those typically are the ones that we have in October before we go into our October meeting.
Mhm.
So now we're looking at 211 town meeting warrants. And we have A, which is in general.
I'm assuming the governing, the bylaws governing the matters. Because generally these things used to be posted. They had to be posted in the libraries, in town hall, I believe the police station. And I think it used to be, I don't know whether or not it's still in the school.
Yep, in the libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we wanted to add electronic bulletin boards or Facebook or however you advertise, right?
Well,
No, the town
website.
website.
The town website's the most important place to post any of that stuff, seems to me.
Right, exactly.
Are these postings set by statute or is it local?
This
Yeah.
is local. The one there's one by bylaw that says the police officer needs to post
Yeah,
the-
that's
Wait.
the one that draws my attention. Why, it seems a little archaic. I'm not sure why
yeah.
still require a police officer to go to town hall and staple or pin paper to a board.
Made it more official.
Well, I think we ought to have our number one place of posting be the website. If people want to have some additional places that they're used to, that's fine. But the website, something should be official. And in other organizations that I've been in, people have made a point of making the website official and the Facebook or any other social media deliberately unofficial and not to conduct town business and social media. I think that's a good, safe plan too. Social media can get away from you. And the website you have control over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, in this day and age, nobody gets the newspaper anymore. It's very rare. And there's not, you know, a single local newspaper. Sorry, Sean. I don't know if you get the newspaper.
No, I refuse to get the Standard Times anymore, and the Chronicle, to be honest with you. The only reason why I get the Chronicle is to stop fires in my wood stove.
Yeah.
Dartmouth Week posts, though. I think the general law requires certain things, right? And
Right.
then,
So we post in the Dartmouth Weekly because it's the general law, but you know, the website is where people go for all the information.
okay,
Right.
okay.
And that's going to be more and more true. And I think we ought to make a real effort to stay out of social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a
Steve, you
common
don't
statement.
perchance follow Sean McDonald on social media, do you?
I follow a few people follow me, but I have seen social media get out of control and start to really mess up organizations. But if the organization has the protection of, we have one official website, it's supervised by the town fathers and mothers, and that way you don't have it out of control.
Yeah, it's, and as far as social media goes, I'll answer questions. I'll do debate, but I won't do official stuff on it.
Right.
And I let people know that. Even on my select page that I have, I'll post stuff as a courtesy, or sometimes, you know, if a meeting, I'll go through the meeting and just kind of hit the highlights as to what happened in our meeting. But to be honest with you, most of this stuff's available by anybody going to DCTV or anywhere else to see for themselves what it is. So.
I noticed that we do a lot of saying to post this here, post this there, but I've never noticed any place that says how long something should be posted. Is that because there's a standard answer, or how does that work?
It's usually you post prior to the meeting, and then after the meeting is done and it's concluded, then you can remove whatever material there is.
Is a
Okay.
requirement that these notices be up 2 days in advance? Because we've had to cancel meetings if we didn't get the posting done.
Well, that's a different, that's the
Open
posting
meeting.
of a meeting. Not a posting of the warrant. The warrant's entirely different. The warrant has to be in the hand, according to, if I remember correctly, if we go further down, I think the posting is, the warrant paperwork has to be in the hands of the town meeting members 14 days prior to the meeting.
Oh,
Okay.
right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, we ran into that. It's different. And then it needs, and for a special town meeting, they're different
I think
requirements.
it's
I think
10
the special
days for
10 days.
regular. Yeah.
Correct.
What was your concern about that, David?
I think it was just a question as to how
Yeah,
soon,
was
how
just-
long things need to be posted.
Yeah, it was just a question. I mean, I've gone on the town website and I've seen things that are still posted up there and it's been like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I think we're gonna have some type of system that we do get them off when they're not supposed to be there anymore. Or
Yeah.
is there an archives that somebody can check into? Because that would be another question later on.
We do. There's some things that stay up there just in perpetuity, like old warrants and things like that. And then the newer
Yes.
ones, we try to make them more prevalent, or keep them chronological. So, the public can follow them more easily, but we'll look into that.
Okay.
The warrants, the warrant sections A and B is fine as is, with the exception of maybe posting it on the town website as the initial post, somewhere around there, so. Whenever a town meeting is called, select board shall give notice by public. Okay, that's where, of a local newspaper of such intention, and shall include in the warrant for such town meeting, subsequent petition. Okay, yeah, that's fine there. That's,
Now, this section here where it talks about, which was amended by town meeting and approved by the voters 2011, 2012. All petitions which are received at this office on or before 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 4th business day following such publication. That sounds a little convoluted.
Yeah, I don't really follow that. See,
well, it would be, it's basically, it's a requirement that if you're gonna have something, if you're gonna have an article, it's good, there's a deadline for the article to be submitted. Like say if somebody wants to, somebody wants to do a street abandonment and they decide to send it, send their article, prior to town meeting, it's not gonna be accepted because there's a deadline for that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to follow it.
Do we
So,
post that we are now looking for warrant items? Because that makes sense what you said, Sean, but I'm not reading it that way.
yeah,
Do we post that there's an intention looking for warrant items? That's what this is saying.
I don't know if we do that.
Not really.
Yeah. Oh my
Right,
goodness.
so I think that's a problem. Not that I'm saying, not saying we have to do it, but I think it's a problem having this statement in here if it's not something we do.
Yeah, I like the comment, is this done? I would just put clarified.
Yeah,
So initiation of warrant articles. The select board shall include on the warrant for a town meeting, the subject matter of all petitions that are submitted by 1, any individual elected town officer, 2, any multiple member body acting as a majority of its members, 3, any 10 voters for the annual town meeting, and any 100 voters or 36 town meeting members for a special town meeting, provided such petitions have been reviewed by it within the time period it has established for the warrant to be open, and further provided that any such petition has been filed by voters must demonstrate the residency of the petitioners, and such residency must be verified, all as provided in the general laws. Articles on the
think it's,
warrant shall list the petitioners. The only thing I think I agree with is articles on the warrant shall list the petitioners. The rest of it seems like there's too many moving parts. Oh, if it's gonna be on this warrant for a town meeting, it needs this number of people. If it's on a special, it needs a different number of people.
No, that's. A special town meeting is one that's duly called. you're basically, you're gearing up for something out of the ordinary. And if you're gonna have something out of the ordinary, there should be some kind of restrictions that you need to meet. You know?
Okay, but on a special town meeting, we've also said that sometimes it's to pay bills that didn't happen in a timely fashion. That
Well,
would
that would
not,
be, yeah, but,
but that doesn't, isn't covered here.
yeah, it is. Because special town meeting, it's who submits the articles. So, and generally, any late pay bills is submitted by the town treasurer.
Multiple member
So,
voting
and he is any individual elected town officer or any multiple. So,
So Sean McKenna, so you saying that
not-
there is not when there's an upcoming town meeting, there's no posting that says the town of Dartmouth will be holding a town meeting on this date. If you intend to submit a warrant article, it needs to be submitted by this date.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. That's why I put this note. I'll check with the clerk's office. Maybe
Okay.
that's part of their process.
It would seem like that would make sense, that there be some public notice to say to people, if, not that, people are lining up to do this, but it would seem like there should be some kind of procedure for that. But you'll ask about that and let us know.
Yeah.
And
Hi,
we
Cody.
said we're gonna leave newspaper in there, but make sure that website is the primary. I think we might have to put it in the newspaper for people who don't have, since we don't have universal internet yet.
Yeah, I think as long as we identify that the website is primary, it's perfectly okay to leave the newspaper language, but we got to make sure the website stuff is in there.
Okay.
As long as we're not publishing the entire warrant, because I don't think the town could afford that.
Right, agreed. Yes.
Most places have had that problem where they've got to publish an entire warrant in a paper.
No,
And
you
it-
publish that the warrant is available at town hall or on the website.
it
Exactly.
used to be published, and then the town abbreviated it. And the only ones who publish the entire entire warrant right now are the fire districts.
Yes,
It goes to their meetings.
and some other towns, not ours, but I've seen it in other towns.
Yes. And it's just like a whole page. And it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
First of all, it's a whole page, and, it's small print, and it's like,
Going back to what I think Heidi said about the confusion, is there a better way to structure this subsection so that under special town meeting, we put, by town meeting, you need 36, by voters, you need 100. I don't know, I'm not editing it, but I just wonder if the structure could be more aesthetically pleasing and understandable.
Yeah, perhaps with
Bullet
bullet
it.
points. That would be.
I
neat.
put down an entire hold on B to discuss with Anthony. There's got to be a rationale for him to look back and say, why was it stated this way? Because I'm looking back at the original document in 2000, not the original, but the last time I got a printed version that I could find. And none of that is there. That whole paragraph, whenever a town meeting is to be called, the select board shall give notice by publication. In essence, it sounds to me like you're looking for warrant items. None of that is in this document.
Mm.
It was added in 2011, 2012, and maybe Anthony has a little history on that.
Well, I would just back up what Steve Mello said, that if we just made it a little simpler with some bullet points, so it isn't confusing to people. Whatever Anthony says on the substance, yes, that's fine. But I think we could then just rewrite the paragraph in less legalese and more plain English that's crystal clear.
and my suggestion, maybe talk to Doug Roscoe. Because this is from the Roscoe Commission.
I think part of the confusion is also it's not labeled C. C's on the next page, but that's deleted, and this takes its place. But I think it should be labeled as a bullet point C.
So is there a C, inclusion on warrant,
Yeah, it's on the next
Okay.
thing, but it says deleted.
and it's deleted? So, in 2000, so the document, Anthony's document we're looking at would be the 2010 document. So in 2000, it said the select board shall include on the warrant for an annual town meeting the subject matter of all petitions filed in conformity with paragraph B above, which have been received by it within the time period it is established for the warrant to be open. Whenever a town meeting is to be called, the select board shall give notice by publication in local newspaper of such intention and shall include in the warrant for such town meeting the subject matter of all petitions which are received at the office before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think it was removed because they sucked it into the other paragraph. But it still is, it's not clean.
No.
I wouldn't suggest adding it back. But we do need to find out if we're supposed to be posting, looking for warrant items,
Yeah,
and we're not doing that. That seems like a kind of big deal.
Yeah. And maybe we are, like I said, I'll check with the clerk's office.
Right. All right, so now let's go. It is 7:10. Let's power through section 212. Availability of town officials at town meeting, participation in proceedings.
Now, I know Anthony's put down school committee also, when that comment goes all the way to multiple member body, that would fit any, I mean, if you want to change it to the chairperson of, and then define it as saying every elected or appointed multiple member body. But that would require the chairman of the conservation to show up, the chairman of the board of health to show up, or designee. I mean, I think that's
You've got a lot of appointed bodies that,
right. Yeah, I mean, you know, do you want, I mean, do you need the historical commission there? Do you need the agricultural commission there? Do you need the bike pathways commission member there? You know, so there's a lot of people there. I mean, I would assume that if you have an article, then the chair or the designee from that committee is going to be there.
Well, it says that clearly, though, that it's, they need to be present if they have something on the warrant. So the school committee has something on every warrant, they would have to be there. But if the historical commission doesn't have anything, they wouldn't have to be there.
Right.
well, and the other thing, I think you want to be sure that you don't end up having to cancel your town meeting because somebody got sick or somebody had to go do an emergency of some kind. So it's got to be phrased that in a way that somebody can substitute without, you don't want to lose the meeting as if you would had a lack of quorum.
Right.
And it
It
says that, it
says that
says
in here too.
if
Yeah.
if you're
Well, it
absent,
does say on the fourth line, that is pertinent to the matters that are contained in the warrant.
Yeah.
So
okay.
like we said, if you're not, if your group does not on the warrant, you don't necessarily have to be there.
Right. And if you're the head of that group and you can't be there, you can appoint someone else from your group to be there in your place, right?
Yeah, that's further down. It says,
Yeah, right.
or a department head is absolutely.
Thank
due
you,
to illness
Brian.
or physical
Yeah.
cause, such person shall designate a deputy to attend to represent that office.
Why
Well,
would he be pointing
body
out the
department.
school committee? Aren't they considered a member?
They're a multiple member body. I mean, if
Yeah,
they're.
I mean,
That's.
and they're
I
always
would
there,
ask- I would ask Anthony why he put that in there. Just maybe there's some kind of mass general law that keeps school committees separate from other multiple member bodies or whatnot.
Because I do think they fit, because they're also talking about every town officer, which means the superintendent, assistant superintendent are in attention, are in attendance, as
Mhm.
well as members of the
Well, they're
school
department heads. Those are
Yeah.
department heads.
department heads.
the only distinction is the school department budget is not subject to town meeting vote. I don't think we approve the sections of the school committee budget,
You only approve
only
the
approve-
total.
the
Yeah.
total, correct, but we don't break it down like we do every other department.
Correct.
I don't know if there's any other distinction.
No, that's the distinction. That, the vote budget and the ag budget.
But they have their own committees that do that ad nauseum.
Right.
It is interesting, though, within this paragraph, so where it says, if any person that has been designated to attend the town meeting under this section is not a voter, such person still shall have the right to address town meeting for the purpose of compliance with this section.
Well, that would be,
And that's people who don't
and the
live in
perfect
town.
example, right, exactly. That's
Right.
the perfect example, is
Oh.
department head, let's say.
Bonnie Gifford doesn't live in town.
Right, right. So she
Yeah.
has the right to address because she works for the town.
Right.
In other towns, those people are sworn in at the beginning of the town meeting. Where I used to work, they had to swear me in before I could speak, but here it's just part of the charter.
Which is more efficient.
I think A sounds okay. How about everybody else?
I agree.
I think so too.
Looks
It's
good.
nice to have check one off, that's all.
Well, we just gotta ask Anthony whether he really needs school committee in there or not.
Yeah, why school committee? And that's a question for Anthony.
Yeah.
So then we'll go down to B, which is participation.
That's fine. Basically, they're saying,
I would have,
saying any department head can make a motion, but if they're not a town meeting member, they can't vote on the motion.
how could you not be a town meeting member and make a motion? And how
Yeah.
would that not be in their self-interest?
If it's a town, say, say the DPW, okay? They have something and all of a sudden they find that there's an item that's wrong. So they make a motion to make that correction. There's nothing wrong with that. And town meeting votes on that. But they would have to justify the motion anyway.
But this allows the motion to be made by a non-resident department head for,
Right.
Yeah,
Or their designee, so it could be a
Right.
staff member.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if that's something that you want.
I
I
think,
mean, it hasn't, trying to remember, I don't think it's happened.
I think the example you gave, Sean, Dave Hickox has made motions on the floor to change the spelling or the length or
Yeah.
a description, and he makes the motion and seconded and voted on. I think that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I would be more comfortable with the chairperson of the Board of Public Works making that motion because they're the person who represents the residents and was appointed or elected as
But if he's
opposed
not
to
there.
an employee.
But if he's not there, I mean, I'm trying to recall the last time I saw any member of the BPW at any town meeting,
Other than, yeah.
other
But
than David or
that's what I'm
Stephen.
saying. I would think, I mean, if these are the people that are elected or appointed,
But I don't have a problem with the department head doing it. I really don't. Because they're gonna be working. Yeah.
However, and it says a person, let me make sure that hasn't been crossed out. Or person that represents, would that also mean the lawyer one of these groups brings to speak on an article can make a motion?
If it's somebody from, all right, let's see, participation, the town officer, chairperson, or person intended to be there to make a motion under this, which relates specifically to the operation of that office. Multiple member body or department that such person represents, provided however that unless that person is also town meeting member, he or she shall have no right to vote. on any other motion or article. But if you have a citizen's petition, like we had last town meeting, if the citizen's petition had hired a lawyer, they could say, you know, our lawyer is going to speak on the article.
Right, and could the lawyer then make a motion to amend?
To amend or to withdraw, yeah, I think they would be able to. They should be
I
able
do
to.
too.
But they can't vote.
Right.
And as long as it's explicit that they are representing the group that had the right to bring the petition.
Correct.
I think one of the issues is when we're in person, we don't know who comes to the mic and they say who they're representing, or they say they're a town meeting from precinct, whatever. It's not necessarily triple checked. And if we're doing it online and you don't have the code, you can't attend the meeting.
Well, it's good online. I was thinking you said that. It is checked, which is great. So they know the
Yeah.
precinct they're in and their name, and they verify that. So at least we have that. But I guess, you know, they get checked in at town meeting though, too. So they could
Right.
be.
But I do know
inactive
there
on
are
precinct.
people at town meeting who come in who don't get checked in because they're not town meeting members, and they sit on, depends which audience, which building we're in, where they sit. But I mean, it's good faith that they're sitting in the non-voting section and haven't moved themselves into a voting section.
Well, they don't have a card either, right?
They don't have a card, but not everybody raises a card. Some people are just raising their hand.
Mhm.
But I'm digressing into a whole nother issue. I think,
Yeah, you're in
in
black
agreement.
ops. You're in black ops category.
yeah,
Okay,
so
is
I
that-
think we're in agreement that participation, we don't see any negative loophole.
I think
I
what's,
do,
I think
I,
what's transpired in the last 60 days is that everybody's like looking for things on the news in places where there's nothing there.
But Terry, you're feeling that this is.
I am concerned about make motions about their departments or let's just take the select board and the town administrator. The town administrator is hired to do the professional work in some ways of the select board, and certainly would advise and help craft language and give direction and guidance. But it's not the town administrator's decision, it's the select board decision. And so with the Board of Public Works, with the school committee, those are the people who are accountable for making the decision. And certainly, like, the superintendent does a lot of the talking, Jim Kiley does a lot of the talking, because they do this all the time. But with Greg Barnes, for example, with the finance committee, it's the finance committee's decision. They make the decisions and the recommendations and whatever. And Greg might say, well, I wouldn't do this, you know, this isn't within the law, or this is how I would say that. We often ask him, you know, how would you deal with this? But I do have a concern at town meeting, which is, you know, representative government, having an employee of the town make an amendment. I have no problem with, like, David Hickok's leaning over to Brian Hawes and saying, you know, Brian, this is how we need to put this, and helping Brian make that, but it's the board's decision, in my opinion. But if Anthony says this is legal and there's no problem with this in terms of accountability, you know. I
Okay, I
guess.
put a big Anthony question there.
Not all boards are created equally either. I mean, I'm thinking of the Conservation Commission. They're a deliberative board. They deliberate on the issues and render a vote. They don't run the environmental affairs of the town. That's something the environmental affairs coordinator would probably be better speaking at town meeting on. And that's just one.
Yeah, and you know what? And the superintendent can probably explain things better than the school committee sometimes, but when it comes to making the decision, it's not the superintendent's decision. So why are they making an amendment? I think that I get what you're saying, and you're right. There's so much that we don't know about what goes in day to day, but I don't know how to explain it any more than I have.
I know, I totally understand what you're saying. And basically, any departmental employee that has a board oversight, if they were to make a motion without the board knowing, that would raise hackles.
Yeah,
If Sean decided to make a motion on behalf of the select board without the select board's knowledge, I would say there's probably at least 3 people serving on that board right now would say something.
yeah,
You know, and especially at the school department, because generally most of the school department, committee members are there. The Board of Health, there's at least 1 or 2 that I see all the time. So, I mean, in the planning board, yeah, they're all, every single one of them is there just about. So I don't see a employee going rogue per se.
but this says they can.
But they can, yes.
This says they can, so I would want to take that out. I wouldn't want to, or make some kind of qualifying language that it has to be with the knowledge or agreement of the board that supervises them.
Or that the board that supervises them appointed them and delegated them to make this motion at the meeting.
Mhm.
Because if the board thought they could speak to it more eloquently and formally designated them to speak on behalf of the board, that would make sense. But you're absolutely right. You don't want somebody making a motion on their own initiative that their supervising board doesn't know about.
I mean, I can say that I don't recall that ever happening.
Yep.
Not to say that it can't, but
Yep.
I don't recall it ever happening.
I do think it's worth a discussion with Anthony just from that, because this isn't just about someone who's speaking that one night. It may be someone that makes a motion that has nothing to do with that board, which happens all the time. Somebody amends a document, the person that amends it from the floor very often is not, isn't living and dying by that amendment. They're just trying to clarify something or.
It gets even more complicated when you consider the planning board, the town planner, the zoning articles that they address, and who's in charge and who's going to speak on behalf of that.
I don't know.
And then you have somebody from the town meeting floor that wants to make an amendment to it, and then all of a sudden that throws that entire article out of whack.
Right.
But they get to, because they're a town meeting member. Like
Right.
that's what I think the difference is. Anything can happen, and it doesn't mean it's the most efficient. It could be maybe a lot more efficient town meeting if we just had the department heads run the meeting and make decisions, but that's not how this is supposed to work, so.
Right. All right, so I put down a big worthy of discussion with Anthony.
Hmm.
All right, well, that is the end of 212. 213, just gonna go for broke. I know it's getting close, but 213 is lit.
Okay,
Can we look at that one?
yep,
Except as otherwise provided by law or this charter, powers of the town in the town meeting. The town meeting shall provide for the exercise of all powers of the town and for the performance of all duties and obligations imposed upon the town.
That's fine.
That is simple,
That's fine.
just changing capital letters.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mm.
Okay,
That's no fun.
now, I will say, the next section has many sections. How are we feeling? It's 7:20.
I'm hungry. I'll be honest with you. I'm hungry right now. So
You're spent? Okay.
I'm smelling mac and cheese and wings over here, so, I've already eaten.
All right, I'll be right over.
Dawn, it's very funny. My partner and I, we had mac and cheese and wings tonight, but I ate it before the meeting.
I didn't have, I was busy putting snow stakes out on my lawn. I don't want the DPW to come by and whack my curbing. I mean, first of all, the only reason why I do it is number one, I don't want to replace the curbing, and number two, I don't want them to damage the trucks. Because I'm looking,
Right.
as a select board member, I'm looking for the safety of the DPW, and I'm also looking for the lasting of equipment.
Yeah. You have to pay if they fix the damage.
Exactly. And my mailbox is fine, so I'm not worried about that.
So would somebody make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Someone second it?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion made by Sean McDonald, seconded by Steve Mello. All in favor will reply. Heidi Brooks, yes. Brock is absent. David Cunha has left.
Yes.
No, he's there,
Oh,
yes.
David's there.
Terry Ham,
Yes.
Sean McDonald,
Yes.
Steve Mello,
Yes.
yes. Brian has left. Steve Taylor
Yes.
and Mary Waite has left. Came late, left early. Sean McGuinness, yeah, I screw up your
They
name.
they don't need to vote on the motion.
Okay, so there, we are,
They're just
we
they're
are,
just in gratitude that the meeting's over.
yeah, we
Yeah,
are
January